Welcome to the Boardroom, your exclusive pass into the heart of transparency within the New Jersey School Boards Association. I'm thrilled as you joined us on this journey as we dive deep into the core values of our association, peeling back the layers of our principles, decisions, and visions that guide us. Today, we're going to talk about professional learning, and we're doing so with the air of transparency. And at New Jersey School Boards Association, transparency isn't just a buzzword, it's a fundamental core value. And the boardroom is your opportunity to experience that with us. So today, I am joined by Marcia Lavigne, our Director of Professional Learning. Marcia, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So can you begin, just for our listeners and our viewers, talk a little bit about what you do and why what you do relates to the work we do.
Well, I am intricate in the planning of a lot of our conferences and workshop. And by that, I mean, I take the time to analyze what board members may need, what's happening up the street at the State House, what's happening locally, figure out how we as an association can support the board members in their learning and their process and their pathways. I take that and then I design a day, or I design the conference, the workshop, so that as they are going through that day, it's seamless. Hopefully, it's seamless for them.
You do an outstanding job. Really
Thank you. Thank you. With workshop, I work closely with the team that's down on the exhibit floor, with my team upstairs on the 3rd and 4th floor, to try to connect the two to create a workshop experience. So from the moment you walk in, you're almost in a space that takes over for you. So that is my job, and how it relates back is that it goes to the counties, it goes to field services. I have to work closely with all of the staff members. It works with mandated training. I spend time with staff understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are and try to help them to take what they do and improve it as they're presenting at conferences and things like that. So
nice. So let's get a little personal.
Okay.
You and I have talked about Simon Sinek and the why, right?
Yes.
So why do you do what you do?
It's funny because you actually texted that to me because this has been planned for a little while. But you texted that to me, and I had to really think about why I do what I do. And we lost power last night, so I had a lot of time to think. For me, from a young age, I wanted to be a part of giving back to the community in which I lived. And that meant doing something in public service. So finding a job that was based in public service that could also allow me to eat food was very important.
So it was a good thing. Yeah.
And my journey actually took me through quite a few different places where I did do nonprofit. I worked for, an animal shelter and spent time there so I couldn't eat food. And then I did work for corporate, and I didn't like that either because it felt like I was selling my soul. So being here allows me to fulfill that piece of public service. And an important piece of public service because it's a part of the educational system, which is the most valuable, important part of our society.
So
it's the
valuable,
children.
right? Yeah, most important.
Yes.
As we would both agree. I did notice your mug. So,
Yes,
and I noticed,
yours.
So, but one of our teams is in the posting.
Not yours.
Yeah. Thanks. For
Not
rubbing
yours.
That in.
Mine is.
A true Eagles fan.
We might not be there long, but we are there this week.
We'll see. So I just wanted to start, just for our viewers, our listeners, if you can explain or talk a little bit about the new requirements. Previously, Board of Education members in the state of New Jersey had a year to complete their first year, their mandatory training for Gov 1. Talk to us a little bit about that change, because that's not the way it is anymore.
It is not.
No.
It is not.
Okay, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, and many of them took that full year to complete their training. This year, starting in February of 2023, they passed some new regulations. The new board members now have to complete within 90 days of being seated. So that means that starting this week, because a lot of them were sworn in rework, so they have that time. They have a little grace period. Okay. So from this week until mid-March, they have to complete Governance 1. And that means either doing it through our self-paced program, through the orientation weekends that we offer, which are 2, or attending one of our mandated training governance 1 days, which is an all-day program. They have to.
Why did they make this change? I mean, if I'm a board member, I have a year to complete the training, but now I have 90 days. So can you talk a little bit about the rationale as to why that change was made?
Yes, there was complaints made to the SEC about board members who were seated for long periods of time, not having the basic knowledge that they needed to get through the budgeting process, to get through, making decisions about staffing, to make decisions in governance.
Right.
So there was those complaints filed with the SEC, and so then they went and took a look at the regs, reorganized them a little bit, and compacted it so that the new members at least are going to get through this orientation and get the foundational information they need so that they can process through that first year. So that first year is tough. It's a hard transition.
Yeah. But I guess the training is even more important for that first year as well.
It is. It is.
Good point.
It is, because it provides a lot to help support them as you transition onto that team, learning that you're a member of the team, learning that you have, 1 of 5, 1 of 7, 1 of 9, that you're a part of that. And so it's not just the regulations that you have to learn, it's learning how to navigate that space that you're now in, and also understanding your role as a board member as it relates to the community. So we deal with all of that within that orientation.
Interesting. And just a reminder to the viewers, if you have a question, you can call in, you can put it into the chat. We're going to continue to have a conversation here, but we'd love to hear from you. Any question you have related to the association, or in particular related to professional learning at the New Jersey School Board Association. So let's go back to our questions, because I am interested, and I'm sure our viewers want to hear more. Does the 90-day requirement, is that specific for first-year board members, or does that apply to others?
Yeah, the 90 days is specific to your first term as a board member. Now, that being said, it does extend a little bit. If you previously served, but have been off the board for more than 3 years, they're going to ask you to retake Govs 2, 3, and 4. So if you were on the board, say in 2015, and then you left in 2018, but now you're back, you have to start all over again with Governance 1. So the 90-day now applies to you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
So which board members need training in general? Say I've been on the board. This is my second year. I'm going to my second year on the board.
Okay. If you're headed into your second year, you're going to take Governance 2, which is school finance. So while we touch on school finance and Governance 1, you get a very foundational introduction to school finance. The financial aspect of any school, as you know, is quite complicated. So then we take all of Governance 2 and just spend time talking about that, loading in negotiations and things like that. So there's Gov 2 for your second year, Gov 3 in your third year. So if you're in your first term, you're taking something each year of that first term. And then you run for the board again. You then have to take the school law in that first year of that second term. So
okay, so in this scenario, say I was on the board, I was off for a year or 2. Now I'm back on the board. What do I do then?
You would take Governance 4.
Yeah.
As long as you had completed 1, 2, and 3. See, these are the intricacies that get sent to us all the time. And a lot of the BAs, a lot of board members send us different questions. So my team and I end up answering a lot of very specifics about the each board member, because sometimes it's very specific to the board member. So if you were on the board in your first 2 years and you did 1 and 2, but for some reason you had to leave and then you came back, you would still have to take 3. And then you would take 4 after that.
Now you mentioned the business administrator. That raises the question of, how do I access, the training module? How do I sign up? How do I get access to it?
Yes, all registrations for mandated training have to go through your business administrator or through the central office. And so they will register you for the training that you need. Once they register you, you will receive a confirmation email from NJSBA's call center. In there, depending on what you've registered for. So you could have registered for, say, the self-paced course. So if you register for that, you're going to get a link that will take you to our learning management system. You won't even know you've changed platforms, but you'll click on that and you'll be in, and then suddenly there's a dashboard that gives you all the courses you have. If you've registered for a live virtual version of the course, which is the ones that run at night and are 90 minutes, or run during the day if it's the full day and it runs all day. Again, you'll get the link to the website where that is listed. And then if you're going for the weekend, you'll just get information from us about
You mentioned the timing. So can you walk us through the different trainings? So each governance module and how long each takes, and it may be different based on if you do the weekend or if you can walk us through so that our viewers have a comprehensive understanding of each.
Sure. So Governance 1 is the one that's offered in the most different ways. And as a board member, you should really make a decision based on what your learning style is and what best supports the way you're going to take in information, but also what's going to support your life.
So you're differentiating.
We differentiate the way we educate the adults. We do it with adults as much as we do with children. So the weekend is a Friday to Sunday. So you're going to dedicate the whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday with us, with Saturday being extremely intensive. I try to put breaks in it, but there's not many.
To no avail.
Well,
you give them cookies.
I give them milk and cookies and pretzels because, Philly. So the weekend, we offer those. There's only 2 of them, and there's only 200 seats for those 2 weekends total. There's 100 on one weekend, 100. It maxes out at 100 per weekend.
Okay, so
and
register now.
Yeah.
So
January's closed. Okay. So only February's open.
So only the February is open at this point.
And one of the main questions we get is, if I can't make it Friday night, can I still? No, you need to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We will hold you in a wait list if you can't make something on the Friday night part. But we really want those 100 seats going to people that are going to be there for all 3 days. You do have to be there for all of Saturday, all of Sunday, all of Friday night is a little different because there's legislatively required pieces to each training.
Right. And
so if you're not at those, then the training doesn't count. So you could have gone to the weekend, and if you miss one of those, you now haven't fulfilled your mandated training.
The weekend offers a unique component, right? A little bit different than the online. Talk to us a little bit about the role of the group leader. In a time where we need more mentors, more coaches. I often get questions from board members, as I'm sure you do as well. Do you have a mentorship program? Talk to us about the role of the group leader for those weekends, because I think that's such a valuable aspect of the weekend.
Yeah, it really does change. It changes the whole way orientation is done, because the group leaders are recently off the board or on the board members who help take.
How do you select these leaders?
They apply through the website. There's actually a spot on our website where you can go in and you can fill out an application to become a group leader, as well as do other things throughout the association. You can volunteer to be more active in the association. To be a group leader, there's different things on there that we look for, but then we also run a training that happens in the spring where we kind of talk about education, adult learning concepts, how it works. Right. But the group leader role is to take what's happening in what we call the big room. So when the staff comes in and the staff is presenting on ethics or presenting on open public meetings or governance, student achievement, those are the main topics that we're talking about. They'll present on that. And then what we do is, after that, you go into a small group of 10, and there's a group leader in there that helps you to kind of break that down and relate it back to what it's like.
This is what I find so fascinating, because here's an opportunity for our board members to ask questions in a comfortable environment, without fear of being judged, being comfortable to ask a question. You're not surrounded by your board or your superintendent or your district leaders, but rather you're in an environment where you can ask a question without being embarrassed or, without fear of being retaliated against. And you're hearing from, someone who's considered a master in the field.
Yes. And a lot of times the dynamics in those in the smaller rooms changes very differently, depending on the makeup of each group. So we attempt to mix up the small groups demographically throughout the state. But what happens organically is that there's just such a mixture. Last year, Irene Lefebvre, the immediate past president, had people that were 20 and people that were 70 in her
Wow.
group that were first-time board members.
It's
The
amazing.
dynamic of that room was fascinating to
And
watch.
they cultivate such strong relationships.
They do.
that
It continues.
continue.
It
Yeah.
continues on, and a
Yeah,
lot
who
of them
was
end
my
up getting
group leader?
emails.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who have worked here who
It's
know
a-
who their group leader was when they
It's
were a
a,
board
it's a
member.
great mentorship model.
Mhm.
We do have a question from the online chat. Jennifer is asking, she was just sworn in for her third term this week. She took Gov4 workshop. Is that okay? And we were actually going to get into this later
We
on
were.
anyway, so this is a perfect question.
Yes, Jennifer, that's fine. The SEC doesn't allow for a lot of leeway in your governance training, but because we won governance at workshop in October, that is the furthest out you're able to take a training. So yes, governance 4 at workshop in October will count towards 2024 trainings. Absolutely.
Quick question about, I can imagine some board members who get nervous about being reported
Yes.
non-compliant. At what point in the calendar year do you report those board members as non-compliant?
The non-compliance happens. It depends. I'm gonna give the infamous legal response. It depends.
Carl will appreciate
Carl will appreciate that.
that, our general counsel.
It genuinely depends because NJSBA tries to work very closely with the SEC in supporting them in their role in this process too, and understanding that they have capacity and a lot happening over there too. So we report anywhere from January through March.
Okay.
Somewhere in that time frame, the list gets sent over, and it varies depending on honestly how many people are on the list.
The list.
The list.
Wow.
Um,
Sounds scary. I don't want to be
but-
on that list.
No, nobody. And we really try to focus on trying to keep them off the list.
Right,
We
yeah,
want to
okay, that's
have
a good
the
thing.
list be
Yeah.
the smallest it can be.
Sounds scary.
Which is partially why NJSBA offers trainings every month, except for July and August. And sometimes in September, depending on return times and what the calendars look like. But we really do try to give board members, other than the self-paced, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, starting usually in February throughout the whole calendar year. We try to offer some version of each training for them so that we can keep the list really small.
Now, you mentioned the SEC.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that just for our viewers who may be even out of state? What is the SEC? What does it do in relation to this work?
The commission is, they are a group it's based in the Department of Ed.
Yep.
And it's their job to impose the regulations. We really just track all the trainings. That's what NJSBA does. We provide them and we track them. And then we give that over to the commission to implement any kind of punishment. And I hate using that word, but any kind of sanction that may come down the road. So their role is to ensure that all the board members who are elected officials and required to take these trainings get the trainings done.
And that School Ethics Commission is a governing body that exists outside of us.
Yes.
Just for our viewers to understand.
Yes, it is not us.
And that's important, an important distinction to have, that checks and balance. But so yeah, you don't want to be on that list.
You don't want to be on that list. And honestly, NJSBA does everything we can to ensure that our data is accurate. And we work with board members who reach out to us if there's any kind of glitches or questions or comments or concerns, you email into call center or you email into PL, and we kind of take a look at it and try to fix it. If there is
We have a question from our Vice President of Resolutions Legislation,
Nice.
Shanta L. Jackson. And that question is, what other opportunities do you recommend for new board members to become more effective? And maybe outside of, let's think beyond the Gov1 training.
Yes, they should. I would highly recommend attending your county meetings on a regular basis.
Good recommendation.
The topics that are offered there, I mean, that's where it's bad, but that's where I got my start, was in the counties. So I always go back to that world. They're offered throughout the year. It's at least 5 a year that you can attend, and it's really close. And now with the ability to attend other counties through your computers, you can go throughout the whole state. So I highly recommend attending that, because you can just hear conversations that will help influence questions that you may want to ask. whenever possible, attending conferences that are open to you that you're able to do, if you're able to make that work with your work schedule. But workshop is one of the number one things that I say you have to get to.
Isaac Stern, a violinist, American violinist, once said, and I love this because I use this a lot, that music happens between the notes, right? So, and that's the same thing when you think about attending a meeting, right? What occurs between the meetings? You know, that opportunity to forge new relationships, reconnect with others. The learning, I think, is just limitless in sharing opportunities. And that's one of the reasons why we launched our connection platform. So we have 3 strategic priorities at the association. And those are content, connection, advocacy. And related to connection, we launched a portal in which members can share information ubiquitously, right? Log on, say a board member from Bergen County or Sussex County has, hey, I'd love to see a new board member orientation agenda. And then a board member from Atlantic County, Cumberland County pops on, hey, here's our agenda. So that sharing of information and best practices really provides and strengthens the value of engagement, as well as raises the bar for our performance in board governance, I believe strongly. And I know Kurt Rebovich was very instrumental in bringing that platform to us. So anyway, I went off topic there a little bit.
No, you didn't. No, connections absolutely relates back to, I mean, communal learning is a huge move.
Opportunity for new board members to get involved and share ideas.
Well, it's also a way to get mentoring going. I mean, that's the biggest piece of the counties is the mentoring that happens when we talk about the mentoring with
the county meetings.
But and the connections is related to that. So if you're in connections, you're going to start to make those.
Yeah. And the county meetings, I'll address this because you brought it up. I thought it was a great recommendation from our question. The county meetings have their own leadership. So, while we're connected in terms of being, associate kind of parent organization, we don't have governance over that. That county meeting has leadership of their own, and they determine their agendas. And I've been to incredible county meetings where they have topics that are so relevant to the board member. We are, I believe, living in a time where we have the most politicalization and polarization at the local board level than ever before. So I think, being able to talk to others outside of your local Board of Education to share ideas and that sense of universality, that, we're not in this, you're not alone, you're not on an island. And to that point, New Jersey School Boards Association is also here to help in any way we can. And a lot of that help is at our professional learning level, and also we have field service representatives. And what that means is you have an employee of New Jersey School Boards Association that can come in, that can work with your Board of Education, that can provide ethics training. We do strategic planning. We do, in some cases, superintendent searches, CSA searches. But they're there to guide you, to look at your goals, to reflect, to evaluate your progress. So if you haven't reached out to your field service representative, that's another avenue for learning. And I think that would help with new board members as well. But in addition, I was thinking also you have other conferences.
We do.
Right? So you have other, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think new board members may want to take advantage of this as well.
Yes, we are in the process of planning a women's conference that'll happen in April. And I'm working closely with Lauren Cuervo, our lead director of, I don't even know her whole title because it's a million different
lead
things,
director.
But you know it.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead. Lead
Strategic
director.
development.
There you go.
So, but talk to me about that Women in Leadership Conference. Who is the target for that conference? And how, if I'm listening in, how can I attend?
Everybody is a target for that conference because the idea is is understanding your dual role that you may have. And so if you're a board member, you have a dual role because you're a community member, you're a board member, you're a parent, you have a job, all of those different hats that you wear. So the concept is balance and inclusion of all voices at the table so that we're making sure that everybody's being heard. We will be releasing the registration link soon. It's not up yet, but it'll be out there soon. And you will have to work through your VA to get registered for that. But the concept is that we're helping everyone find their voice, find their empowerment, find balance in what they're doing. It is focused on women in leadership, and so there's a lot of women that are going to be speaking. It's mostly female women.
But you'd
leaders.
mentioned board members, and the reason why I asked this question about the target audience is it's not just board
It's
members.
not just board members. No.
So you
No.
mentioned you have to register through your VA, but what if I want to attend and I'm not on a board of education? What would I do?
There'll be a separate link that you can click on to register. So there's a non-member link and a member link.
Okay.
So so you can share it. I mean, if as our members are going through this, if you have somebody who is not a board member that you want to bring with you to come to this, as we release the agenda and you take a look at it and you're like, oh, this friend would be great, or this person would be wonderful. It's open to everybody. It's a conference that we're hoping will speak to lots of people of the community and bring the whole community together.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, any other areas or ways that a new board member can get involved?
They can, like I said, they could go online and take a look at that volunteer application if they want to. But I really do suggest, like you said, I was going to go back to the field service reps, talking to your field service reps, starting there so that you can get your connection there. Going to the county meetings, because that's the first step in the door, and really just getting to understand the community in which you're based, because a lot of times we're so focused on our local spot that we don't realize we get lost for the trees in the woods. Yeah. But you can we're going to run a spring conference also, so you could come to that. There'll be some regional programming that Field Services is going to be putting out, so take a look for that. And then there's some stuff online that through connections that you'll see.
Great.
So mostly take a look watch your school board notes, watch releasing from marketing, and pay attention to what's coming at you.
Excellent. Say I'm a board member, I've completed my training, but it's not showing up on my certificate.
Okay, so there's a couple.
I know you get this question all the time too.
We get a lot
Call
of
center
questions.
is probably inundated with this question.
There's a difference between your certification and your transcripts. So if you're going to get your new board member certification, which is something that all new board members can get in their first 2 years. So if you're looking to get that, but you complete your required training through the self-paced course, that's not going to get you your certification for new board member. Right. So that's why it's not appearing on your certification listing, but it is appearing on your transcript. So those are two separate spots in your portal. So remember, as you look in your portal, if you're a new board member or a seasoned board member, you have two different places in your portal that you can look. You have my transcripts, and then you have track my certification. Those are very different places, and they're tracking very different things. But if you do want to get your new board member certification and you took the self-paced course because you were like, oh, I have 90 days, I got to check this, I got to get it done, and you get that done, that's okay. You can still attend something to get your certification for the new board member. So you can still go to a live virtual. You can still attend the mandated training day. The only thing that isn't open is the weekend. But you can still go do other versions so that you can get your certification.
Yeah. Now we also have a spring conference, right?
We do.
Can you talk a little bit about the spring conference? And who is that targeted towards? And
the spring conference is directed at mostly school board members, school district employees. It's more directed at your district. And it's going to be, we're going to have at least 3 different tracks that we're hoping to have.
What is a track?
A track is, it's basically a training course. So there'll be a line that's like for one of them is our PR. We're going to do public relations and communication. So there'll be a track of
Who's
trainings.
the target for that?
That is anybody in your district who would be doing your outreach for your community.
Okay.
So whatever role, title, whatever you call them, that's where that would fall.
Okay.
Now it doesn't mean that it's not open to other people. I mean, board members can attend that track. Superintendents can attend that track. Anybody can attend that track, but it's directed at the person that you have doing your community relations and public relations for the district.
Gotcha.
So what it means is that the sessions in that track are going to be more tailored and focused at speaking to that level of person. The other tracks are student achievement and student success, and then potentially school security. but an overarching sense of school security, not necessarily the traditional, lockdowns or cybersecurity.
Gotcha.
We're talking about an umbrella approach to school security.
Okay.
And so those other two are more of a district personnel board member track. So
Great. Awesome. If you just tuned in, I'm here with Marcia Lavigne, our Director of Professional Learning. We're having a conversation about professional learning, but you can call in with any question you have, or you could type it into a chat. We'll certainly get to all of your questions. So we'll continue to have this conversation, and feel free to interject with any questions that you have. Can you talk to us? I know I get this question all the time about workshop. My presentation was rejected. What might be the reasoning, or what advice would you give a stakeholder who has submitted a presentation? It was rejected, but they want to present this year.
Okay. So the process we have, our workshop, we have a committee that goes through all of the submissions, and they are relying on what you write in that submission to best portray your program proposal. So if we're looking at an action lab and there's nothing actionable in it, they're going to give it a low score. Which you'd be surprised at how many action labs have no actionable event.
Yeah.
Or if we had we tried to have them relate back to our strategic plan.
Okay.
And a lot of them didn't have anything that related back to the NJSBA strategic plan.
What about the theme? What if I considered the theme and I wrote my proposal based on the theme? So
that helped. I'm not going to lie. It helps a
Okay.
lot this year. This last year, people who were incorporating the theme and kind of worked that into their description and worked that into their learning objectives and worked it into the proposal, they did score higher.
Yeah.
By the committee.
This last year, our theme was Today's Students, Tomorrow's Superheroes, and we had over 8,000 attendees at workshop in Atlantic City. And right now we're talking about submission of proposals for workshop sessions. And we do turn away a considerable amount. And we get that question about, why was mine turned away? Why was my proposal rejected? So we're talking a little bit about how you can refine that proposal to ensure a better rate of success at getting into workshop 2024, which is in October. But you've been planning, Lauren Corvo and the team have been planning almost immediately following the previous year's workshop.
Yes, we have been.
Yeah.
Yes, we have been.
Okay. Anything in terms of professional learning, is there anything or any new initiatives that you feel, and we talked about women in leadership, but that would better serve our members? Or say I have an idea, I'm watching right now, and I have an idea of what New Jersey School Boards Association should do. Let's say I'm opinionated. You guys need to do this.
Yeah.
Who do they reach out to on your team to share that idea?
They can send it. We actually have a general email box. It's training and professional learning.
What is that? What is that email?
It's T. If you give me 1 second, I can pull it up here. I apologize.
And we'll put that on the screen for you. So we'll drop it into the chat box as well, just so you have that information.
We have two. One is training@njsba.org. And the other one is tpd@njsba.org.
Okay.
Either one of those will get to the entire team.
Okay.
Which is Lucia Gershman and Amy Burke and myself.
Yeah. I mean, at school boards, we believe that success doesn't occur in a vacuum, right? So we know we're stronger when we listen intently to what your needs are as members. How can we better serve you? So we're constantly thinking of ways we can serve you better. And that's been part of our vision for quite some time now. So along those lines, if you do have an idea or you think that school boards should consider whatever it might be, certainly email us and let us know so that Marcia and her team can take a look at that and be guided accordingly. In terms of, as you reflect on the governance modules, so you've got Gov 1, 2, 3, and 4. Talk to us a little bit about, I'm a board member, but I don't learn legal until, so how do I, if I'm a new board member, I feel like I don't know all the information until I've completed the 4 modules. I know the answer, but yeah, share what does Module 1 look like, and how does that prepare them?
Module 1 is a 6-hour. When we do it in one day, it's at least 6 hours. So it touches on and growing. It's going to probably be longer than that. It's a full day program, though. So it touches on all of the different pieces.
Yeah.
So you have an ethics. You have almost a 90-minute presentation just on ethics, and then you have on top of that Open Public Meetings Act, which is a good 45 minutes.
So while you may not know everything,
correct,
you've been subjected to everything.
It's like a buffet.
Well, there you go.
It's like a buffet. You get to go. And
I'm not
get
big on
little
buffets,
bits.
if I could speak honestly. Just being
You don't like the sneeze
completely
guard, right? It's
transparent
not
here
enough to protect you, right?
Yeah, no, not enough with the sneeze guard.
But it's an orientation. So the idea is that you're going to spend time learning a little bit from each of the departments in our building, which is why it keeps growing, because everybody wants more time. They all, when I say 20 minutes, they come back with an hour, which is fine. I understand it. But when anyone sits for 6 hours, they start to just close over. But the other thing is that honestly, you can take any of the governances that you want. It won't be counted by the SEC, but we welcome new board members to take up 2, 3, and 4 at any point. You could take
them.
Yes, you
It's
absolutely.
not going to count towards next year's
Correct.
requirement.
Correct.
But, in terms of being informed as a board member.
Correct. You are welcome to attend any of the mandated trainings that you would like to do.
Daniel's put a question in the chat related to, do you need volunteers? How can I volunteer? How can I help the state association? So without knowing if Daniel's a board member, let's bifurcate your answer. So as a member of the public, can I get involved in what ways to help? And I'll answer a little bit of this as well. And then as a board member. So I'll let you answer the board member and I'll answer the member of the public.
I appreciate it.
So Daniel, if we just operated by listening to our members, we'd be remiss, and I think we'd be myopic in our thinking. And we realize that people that are not members now,
can become members.
Can be members next year.
In November.
So yeah, we certainly would love for you to get involved. As we mentioned before, if you have any ideas, you can certainly send us those ideas. But I certainly would avail myself to having a chat over a cup of coffee if you have some ideas or you'd like to get involved in certain ways. The committees that we have, our committee structure is really only afforded to those who are our members who sit on the Board of Education. And we have a variety of ways that you can get involved. I'm going to let Marcia answer the question related to how can I get involved from the lens of professional learning, because you might be an expert in something. You might be a school leader. So I'll let her answer how you might get involved in terms of teaching a course or getting involved in that way. But in terms of being a member of the public, we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your thoughts. In terms of active involvement, we do defer to our members for active engagement. But I'll give you an example. We're rebooting our website. So I've got a task force that's been working diligently on redefining our website to make sure it's more user-friendly, that it is, more member-driven. But certainly members of the public that aren't, the members we serve use our website for information, for research. So that's an area where we could certainly get your insight and involvement.
Yes, and so for membership, it varies, and I think your background and your expertise apply to where you would want to volunteer with the association. There are a lot of committees, standing committees that you could be a part of. There's the group leader piece that you could be a part of in professional learning. We could always take a look at, if you are somebody who has some expertise that fit into a course, figuring out how that could work for us. But there's also just the grassroots level. I mean, Tim talked about the counties. The counties all have officers, and they are constantly in need of individuals who are willing to step up and be in that role and take on the face of the county association, but also be the voice. Because if the counties aren't speaking to the state association, then the communication isn't going both ways. So we need some people that talk up and people who talk down for the association to be fully functioning and working properly. There's board of director positions that you can fill.
And I do see that as a ladder. Now that you mentioned that, and I think this is relevant to Daniel's question, getting involved in your county association, I do see that as a step before possibly getting more involved at the state level in the board of directors or even down the line potentially considering an officer position.
Each one of your executive officers started as a county
Right.
officer.
So that's a great point to start there at that county level to get involved. And if you're a student, we urge you to get involved locally with your school. And hopefully your board has student representative that you can consider that as well. So we don't know where you're at in your career or where you are in your stakeholder lens, but we certainly urge you to get involved.
Yeah, and honestly, I would never say that we don't need volunteers. We always need volunteers because we always need to be filling and looking for people. So
Makes us stronger.
It does.
Yeah, we talk a lot with leadership about the difference of opinion and how it makes us stronger. And I feel like we are living in a divided world. But when we make decisions, it's so important to consider the opposing opinion. And I think, at least at leadership, we've tried to cultivate an environment where we're listening to the room, right? Hearing the entire room, ensuring that no voice is marginalized, and ensuring that voice, because that voice may change direction, complete direction of the organization. That could be a pearl of wisdom, that a nugget of information that can change how we operate better and more effectively. So I think, at least internally, as I reflect on our internal work, it's so important that we welcome differences of opinion and that we embrace that. We have they laugh at me because I put a plush skunk in the middle of the table.
Yes.
And that skunk represents that things are going to get messy in here, but that's a good thing. It makes us stronger. So yeah, it's, anyway.
Well, again, we talked about the women's conference and the women in leadership, and that's one of the big premises is ensuring that your team is listening to all the voices, whether you like them or not, all of the voices.
And the barriers that you faced as a woman in leadership. I'm excited about that conference. Yeah,
I am too. I'm trying to.
Yeah. So I have, I ask 3 questions always at the end of podcasts.
Yes.
And certainly if you have a question, fire away. But, I like to ask, or I like to end with, what book are you currently reading? And would you recommend it? Sometimes you're reading a book and you wouldn't recommend it. Second is, what is a quote that you live by? Or maybe something that someone said once, or a quote that sits on your desk. And the third is, name a person who's been an inspiration to you, mentor, it could be anyone. So those 3 questions. First book.
Well, I don't ever just read one book because it depends on where I am in my head in that space.
Well, you're in professional learning, so that's a good answer. Good answer.
The book I'm going to talk about though is Homefront by Kristen Hanna. If you liked Nightingale, if anybody read that, you'll love this book too.
What's the premise? Tell us about the book.
It's about the first Iraqi war. To war. So the concept of that, but it's about what it's like. It actually goes along with the women's conference that we've talked about.
Yeah.
What it's like for her as being a mom, being a wife, and being a soldier, and having to leave, and the dichotomy of dealing with that because her husband doesn't understand why she cares so much. Her husband, while he loves her, still just doesn't get all of that. And while she's over there, she gets injured and all of the stuff that happens.
Sounds like a keynote for your Women in Leadership Conference. Just saying.
It would be good. But it is one of those ones where you, if you make sure you have your box of Kleenex and you're ready to dab your eyes as you're reading it, especially if you're a woman who has dealt with any of that and you're a mom, because like Nightingale, if you read that, I was sobbing at the end of it. So yes, I would recommend it. It's good. That's my light reading. That's my light reading.
That's your light reading.
That's my light reading.
All right. What about a quote?
It's funny because during in the last year, I reached back out to a friend of mine from my student exchange in high school because of the war in Kiev. So I reached out to see if they were all safe and they were all fine. And in the process of doing that, she quoted back to me a quote that I had when I was 18, which is a very different Marcia than this,
Wow.
Marcia. But it was life is short, have fun, which is hysterical to me. And as soon as she said that, like all of these different images came into my head. And I would say that it's my quote is probably still the same, but it's be here now is where I am
Wow.
now. So I think as I've gone through life, the quote is about the same, but it shifts depending on
Be here now.
where I am.
So, and you know, I have a story for everything. So I have a quick story. Bear with me, listeners. No,
It's your show.
Yeah, well, it is that. So I was coaching is T-ball of all things, highly competitive, of course.
T-ball.
So there's this parent who, it was videotaping, holding up their camera and videotape every time the kid was up, every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talked to, he missed something that occurred. I forget what it was, the details, because he was trying to get his phone to record. And I said, what you're doing by doing that is you're looking through a screen.
Mm-hmm.
You're not enjoying the sounds, the ambiance, right? The entire picture, being present, because you're behind a screen. Right?
You're not really experiencing it.
You're not experiencing it.
Yes.
You're not in the moment.
It's funny that you had that because that's the exact same conversation I had with my husband about recording the kids like at the zoo or I was like, put your phone down.
Right.
Yeah, you're capturing this to watch later, but you're not here now. You're not experiencing
That's right.
this moment at this moment.
Put the phones away.
Put it away. Be here
Enjoy
now.
the moment.
Be here now.
That's right. Yep.
So yeah, I feel as though it's very similar to what I mean when you're 18.
Yeah.
Of course, have fun, but
Really?
yes. I think that as I move through life, it shifts a little bit. Now that I have kids, I just want to be here now because the decade with my daughter has gone fast.
Yeah.
And
the last question is, someone in your life that's provided, mentorship, inspiration.
This one is a little bit more difficult because again, I think as I move through life, it's different, and I don't have a someone. I have a group of someones. My family and my friends are my foundation, and I feel like they fill in all of my rough edges and my weaknesses, and that's partially why I'm drawn to the people I'm drawn to. I think with my friendships, is that I see in them something that I don't see in myself. So they're the ones that I look to help inspire me to be a better version of myself.
A better version.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that what we're all striving
That's
to
what
be?
we're all striving for. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I didn't give you the
No, I love
answers
it.
that you
That's a great
want,
answer.
but it's
That was exactly what I wanted.
it's my family and friends.
Well, thanks for tuning in to the Boardroom, this episode of the Boardroom. And we're going to be back next month with a different guest.
Thank God.
You don't want to do this again? Charlie Muller will be here on Valentine's Day of all days. So you can sit and enjoy lunch, your Valentine's lunch with Charlie and me. But Charlie is our new business administrator in residence. And he's going to share a little bit about budgeting, finance, really perfect timing in terms of being on the board and working through how you support your business administrator and district officials, and what questions to ask and how to, where should I be asking questions appropriately. So look forward to that conversation. Hopefully you can join us February 14th from noon to 1 p.m. And thanks again for joining the Boardroom. Have a great day.